everybody, to PechaKucha Volume 57 here at the Mill and Mine. Thank you for coming out. Anybody's first time? Awesome, well welcome. So PechaKucha was started in Tokyo, Japan by architects Astrid Klein and Mark Dytham. And they basically created a format where presenters get to present under a constraint, which is 20 images, 20 seconds per image to tell your story, and that's 6 minutes and 40 seconds. And what you'll experience tonight will be 9 presentations. We'll have 2 intermissions. So we will dive into that. We recently did a podcast, myself and Lila Honecker, who's one of our curators. We did a podcast called Choose to Be Curious. So if you want to find it, it's a really interesting story of kind of background on how this thing got started, what it's like to be a part of. We had a great interviewer. She lives in another part of the country. I can't remember where. I think she lives in Virginia, but she was in Oregon when she interviewed us. So there's that podcast, Choose to Be Curious. And then we have some thank yous to give. So first, we want to thank our presenters. This thing that you're about to experience is always only as good as our presenters, which is really as good as Knoxville. So I think you'll enjoy it. So presenters, thank you. We also want to thank the Mill and Mine for creating this town hall, this space for us. Thank you for having us. You're here for a free event. Our poster was created by Matthew Israel. Israel's art is over here on this wall over here. So if you're interested in learning more about Israel's art, some of those pieces are for sale. You can speak with him over there. And thank you, Israel, for creating our poster. And then Taryn Farrow is taking images tonight for us so that we can preserve this moment in pictures. These are our curators. We have 10 curators right now. Over the last 14 years, we've had a bunch of different curators, but these people put a lot of effort into this. And the one commitment that we all make is we're going to spend 1 hour once a month at a bar planning this event. So thank you. It sounds like a good way to meet. And then format. So you're going to see our presenters right here. There's the 3 presenters, intermission, 3 presenters, intermission, and then 3 more presenters. Last thing I would say is please put your phones on silent. And if you want to have a conversation, there's a wonderful courtyard outside to do that. Thank you very much, and thank you for showing up for Volume 57.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Alon Ferenczi. I was rabbi at Heskem in a synagogue for 12 years. Just over 3 years ago, I stepped down to coach artists and consult to arts organizations. And what I've learned and seen is that creativity heals. In the psalmist's words, it turns lament into dancing and sackcloth into joy. It heals in a lot of ways. Primarily, I've seen people recover from addiction, recover from burnout, and recover from the strictures of a too literalist, dogmatic religious upbringing and the constriction that creates in them. We used to say that artists could sin against their talent, that Lenny Bruce, when he was a comedian, drinking and using drugs, was reducing and diminishing his capacity, but I've watched it in just the opposite way. That artists have become more connected to themselves, their talent, their community, because they don't want to drink, they want to play guitar. They don't want to smoke, they want to focus on the painting. So it draws them out of the screens, out of the pornography, out of the gambling, out of the alcohol and other drugs, and into productive practice and creating something that endures, drawing them back into, you could say, real life. I watched people reduce dramatically their consumptions and come into a space of authenticity. I've also watched artists, myself included, overcome burnout through creating. That is the Phoenix from the X-Men comic books, if you're curious. But Phoenix, like these artists, have risen. They've come to points in their careers where they assumed they would just have a desk job. They would fall in love with their next spreadsheet. But they realized by connecting to their heart, to their soul, to their center, they could make albums that had been in them all along, sometimes very late in life, and able to find these quiet moments of true authenticity that light up their face and connect them to the reason they got into the art and music making in the first place. Because as Howard Thurman says, and I quoted this in my first PechaKucha 3 years ago, What the world needs is people who have come alive. And I've watched people rise phoenix-like through the ashes and be reborn as artists they didn't even know were contained within them. I've also watched it transform people's spirituality. A lot of it goes under the convenient rubric of religious trauma, being buried under the dogma of the church, synagogue, mosque that you grew up in, the abuse you might have received at the hands of a pastor or a deacon or a rabbi. I've watched people reinvent their sense of faith and connection and devotion through engaging in art, to see the infinity beyond the scripture, to come to one's own personal understanding of God, to create in God's image, God that goes beyond the names we give him in ritual and structure. And this has been especially true for women artists who seem quite often to me buried under the structures of patriarchy and complementarianism and the need to subsist and be oppressed, let's just be honest about it. They find the heroine's journey through their art. They write the poems that express new myths. They create the plays that show their own sense of self. So with these things on option, these recoveries from burnout, addiction, dogma, why do anything else? Why live an unexamined life or a life of quiet desperation? Maybe it seems hard. Maybe it seems implausible that you could return to having play in you. Maybe it seems implausible or not part of your identity as you understand yourself to be an artist or a creator, but everyone is at their core in their soul. There is a system, a system I've found that works well enough. You have to have big dreams, you'd have to take small steps, and sometimes those steps are not the direction you thought you were going in. Robert Browning said, "A man's reach should exceed his grasp, else what's heaven for?" You have to imagine a world without constraints. Imagine a world where money isn't the issue, where your spouse's support is irrelevant, where the belief of your friends isn't what matters, but you can attempt the absurd. Imagine yourself winning 3 Grammys, writing standards of music, creating the greatest sculpture ever, becoming the person you dreamed. Even sometimes the dream most recently was to have 12 people in your house listening very patiently and attentively to your music. But you don't have to do it all at once either. Small steps matter. You don't have to finish this work, not in this lifetime. But you can heal through play, experimentation, and giving yourself the permission to be wrong, the permission to write 5 pages a week, write 1 song a week, paint for 5 minutes a week. Life is both short and long, delicate and enormous. And as the poet said, do not hurry, do not rest. We each have within us a limited reservoir of paintings, a limited number of songs, a limited number of grains to make that sculpture. But we can do it. And sometimes it requires doing what Brian Eno called with David Bowie in Berlin, oblique strategies. Before I found out about that from David Matthews, I'd been calling them crab steps. So it means that you, to quote Beckett, try again, fail better. I had a client I worked with, a friend, who was writing a screenplay about his experience working in a drug and alcohol rehab, but he was too close to the bone, too close to see the material. So I said, why don't you write it as a science fiction? And he said, that's interesting, I'd rather write it as a Western. So with that sideways step, he was able to relieve the pressure of having to deliver and to make something that was more authentic, something he could see, something he could put his hands around, something through which he could reclaim himself. And that's the possibility with making art, whether you recover from burnout or dogma or addiction or any of the other plagues, loneliness, you can be healed. So my wish for all of us, my prayer for all of us is that we find our reclaimed self through creativity, that we go from fragmentation to coherence, forging meaning where certainty is uncertain, and that creativity heals the community just as it heals the artist, and that through the artist, the moral imagination of this world can be restored. Thank you.
So I'm not as talented as the first speaker was to speak as the screen goes on, so mine's going to be real bumpy and ugly, but just bear with me, we'll get there. name is David Powell, and I'm here to speak on the Real-Time Information Center that's going to be opening soon at the Knoxville Police Department. We're excited about what this program is going to offer, not only to the police department, but to the general public in itself. It's a system where we have access to many public-facing cameras that will not only assist our officers, but assist you as citizens as well. So, give you a little bit of background of what a real-time information center offers. As you can see in the pictures, it looks like a bunch of big screens that we're constantly monitoring cameras, and that's not the case at all. With the real-time information center, it's connected with the dispatch CAD, so when you call 911, the information compiles together and goes to one of over 1,000 cameras that the City of Knoxville has, compared with TDOT, PBA, UT, and all the other cameras. And what that does is it takes that location and it finds the camera that's closest to you so that an operator can zoom in and look at that camera. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal, because typically when you call 911, there's time to get through the system and time for an officer to get dispatched, and then the officer has to drive there. A lot of time where time is of the essence and we need information. With the Real-Time Information Center, you start pulling in this information, start looking for the different cameras, and they can start immediately feeding information to the officer and telling them what's on the scene. How's that important? Well, instead of getting second, third-hand information or an officer assuming what may be there when he gets there, a lot of times he or she has that information once they get there and can make better decisions. Also brings more safety to the area around. I've visited a lot of real-time information centers across the southeast of the nation, and not only is it a safety issue, but it also can be a force multiplier. Many times people see something, call in, hey, there's a wreck here, there's an incident going here, and they're not for sure, but you've been in that chance where I'm not sure if that's it, but I better call in just to make sure that somebody knows about it. With the Real-Time Information Center, we can immediately start zooming in, looking at the situation and see if an officer is actually needed, or maybe fire, EMS, whatever. So it multiplies, a force multiplier. We don't have to wait till an officer gets on scene and then start calling resources. The Real-Time Information Center can automatically start calling for those resources immediately. As we move forward in the Real-Time Information Center, we hope to have more cameras, but anything that the police puts up, they will be highly identified as police cameras and also be marked with the KPD logo, and they'll also be listed on our website where all the cameras are located. Study finds shows that within these camera locations, crime decreases tremendously with each camera, because folks know this is a camera. It's probably not a good idea to break in front of a car in front of a camera, right? So common sense there. Our Real-Time Information Center is not currently up running, but this is inside picture of it. We do some special events. We're kind of tweaking out the issues and seeing what we need to improve on. We're still working on policy for the Real-Time Information Center. All of those things will be listed on our website before the actual Real-Time Information Center opens. A couple weeks, 3 weeks ago, during one of the big UT football games, we also looked at the DFR program. They came in and we did a demo with the drones for first responder. We looked at that as a force multiplier as well, because a lot of places you can't get a camera when you could get a drone to respond. So we're still looking into that technology. We have drones now that operate out of the Real-Time Information Center. They're not autonomous where they have to fly on their own, but right now we have to fly them line of sight. And you've probably heard a little bit about that and how they operated out of our Real-Time Information Center with the storms of Helena. We dispatched them up to help assist and rescue. We also did use the Real-Time Information Center and the drones with the the dynamite that was out on Western Avenue, if you remember hearing that story. Situation was so volatile that it was too far with the back off space, because the amount of dynamite was so large we couldn't get any trucks close enough. The robot didn't have fiber long enough to reach it. So we really relied on the drones to go down and take a look and see what our bomb techs needed to see in order to understand how to defuse the problem. We also have worked several of the UT ball games. A lot of people, a lot of pedestrians, hard to get through with any vehicles. So the drones help, and the real-time information with UT cameras helps us in spotting calls when calls are made out. So overall, we're progressively to move live with the Real-Time Information Center. We're excited about what it has to offer and what it can do for our police officers and for our community. Here's some of the live sites some of the drone shots from the Helena rescues that we responded to in Upper Tennessee. So at the end, the question is, why do we need a real-time information center? And I think I've explained that, but also what I left out is you as an individual or a business owner can join as well. We have two options once we get it up and running, and this information will be posted on our website where you can come in and join with us with your business or as an individual as well. Thank you.
Five, four, three, two, one.
So you may have thought this was a talk about the Able Trade Brew Lab, but you'd be mistaken. This is a talk about mistakes and messes. You ever felt like you're a walking spell check error? Since I submitted this talk, I've been keeping track of my mistakes. The list is long, which is weird because I grew up in a family that didn't make mistakes. My grandfather, he used to say, "I've only made one mistake in my life." One day I asked him what that mistake was, and he said, "If I told you, that'd make two." But I also grew up in the generation of participation trophies. We didn't win, we did our best, we tried. But my parents were amazing. They would always tell me, dream big, work hard, and there's nothing that you can't do. What I've learned is that mantra only works if you're prepared to fail a lot. I remember taking apart my dad's broken power drill just to see if I could fix it. Did I know anything about motors? Nope. Did I fix it? Absolutely not. I didn't fix the drill, but I did learn something, mainly that I had no clue what I was doing, and that was okay. Eventually, I fell in love with woodworking, making things with my hands. This is a table I built for my mom 20 years ago. She said that she'd send a better picture in the daylight so you could see it. I think dark is the best way to see this monstrosity. There's so many things wrong with this table, but there is more lessons in those wrongs than hundreds of YouTube videos. And then came brewing. I got hooked on the idea of making my own beer. It started with propane burners, igloo coolers, plastic buckets. My friends would come to help, mostly by drinking my hard work. The mistakes were messy, but they also tended to be delicious. And the deeper I got, the messier it became. This giant ball of hops was an IPA experiment gone wild. I kept brewing, friends kept showing up. Our realtor begged me to move my gear out of the garage because it looked like a meth lab. We still sold that house with a permanent beer stain on the garage ceiling. That story's longer than 20 seconds. My boss once told me process doesn't always look like progress. This is progress. Piles of wood shavings, half-shaped ideas. It's a mess, sure, but it's my mess. I think we tend to romanticize the finished product, the pristine piece. But this is where the work happens, in the mess. Not in the polish, but in the sawdust. The skipped steps, the wrong cuts, every mistake leaving a mark. That's where the real growth lives. So what does all this have to do with a brew lab? Everything. Because brewing is a mess. They say that brewing is 90% cleaning. In my case, it's more like 99.5. And you can't skip the mess. And when you brew with other people, you learn even more because they make different messes than you do. And if you're paying attention, you learn from those too. At some point, I discovered a Canadian named Cal with a K. He built an all-electric brewery setup and posted his plans online. I was obsessed with it. I built my own from scratch. Since then, that setup has brewed beer in 4 houses, 2 states, an able trade workshop, and now lives in its new home, the Brew Lab. When we moved to Knoxville, I converted the basement into my dream brew house. I built the entire basement around this thing. It was awesome, but it was lonely. I realized maybe brewing is best when it's not just about the beer, but it's also about the people. And then I found this place called Able Trade, an amazing shared space for makers. I saw firsthand what happened when people build together. I was hooked. So when a space opened up, we moved the brewery in, and the Brew Lab was born. That same brewery, now in a place where anyone can use it. They come in, they spill things, they ask questions, they learn. You see, I think that's the magic about a place like Able Trade. This table is my proudest build to date. I remade those legs 4 times. The mistakes in this build and the lessons from them, the advice and the input from other Able Traders is literally what's holding this thing up. This picture I love, not just because it looks awesome, because it does, right? But because of what you can't see. When the photographer walked in, I just made an epic mess. I am literally standing in a puddle of beer and wearing another gallon or 2 on my pants. And I genuinely could not be happier. That's the thing about beer, is it's made to be shared. Beer's best when sharing a story for a night around a fire. We're building a community that brews something together. That's the vision. The Brew Lab isn't just a space for beer nerds and folks who know what they're doing. It's a place to make messes and learn together. If you're a brewer, you know what this is, and you've broken more than one of them. It's a hydrometer, and they have this pesky habit of falling off the shelves and breaking, and no matter how many books or how many smarts or how careful you are, you're gonna break them. And so you sweep it up and you move on. It's not failure, it's just part of making something delicious. The Able Trade Brew Lab is for brewers, but it's more so for the curious. You don't have to know how to brew. You just have to want to learn. It's going to be messy, and sometimes you might make things that you wouldn't share with anybody. But sometimes you're going to make something amazing, something that gets shared around a table, something that brings people together. You want to get messy? You want to learn? You want to build a community? Want to learn not just from your mistakes, but the messy mishaps of others? Want to start with nothing but an idea and brew something that people talk about? Ever wanted to say, here, try this, I made it. Then this is your space, and these are your people. And this is the reward. A beer that represents not mastery, but momentum. Proof that you tried something. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But either way, you poured it out, shared it with someone else, and said, I made this. That's powerful. It's messy, and it's way better than perfect.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, my name's Claire, and I'm the outreach coordinator for Old Sevier Market, which is a grocery store that's going to be opening up in South Knoxville. Don't worry, this is not a 6-minute advertisement, but rather an exclamation of my love and gratitude for the South Knoxville community for embracing us, even though we don't have anything to offer them yet. If you've ever seen someone walking around in flip-flops, board shorts, and a muscle tee, odds are it was Chris Morton. Yeah, Chris Morton. He's our owner, but he also is a huge pillar in the South Knox community. And earlier this summer, I approached him and asked him if I could work for him, and he took a chance on me. So this has been his passion project for over a decade because South Knoxville is a food desert. And what that means is that a ton of people in the area do not have access to food more than a mile from their home. We plan on filling this gap because our model prioritizes affordable and accessible varieties of necessities and balances it out with a rotating variety of local novelty. Now, I could talk to you all day about our distributors and our business plan and the things that we intend on doing, but at the epicenter of all that we do is community. And we want to be more than a market. We want our finger in all the pies. The arts, music, dancing, environmental stewardship, things of that nature. Anything you can think of, you name it. And when I started this position, I kind of realized, I don't know shit about shit. I was horrified, but I was also so excited and so enthusiastic. I had so many ideas. I was given a green light by Chris, and there were so many ways to turn, but I was nervous, and I didn't know when to push the gas. And then I started coming to the realization that the market and I were more similar than I thought. Small businesses and 22-year-olds are in the exact same position. They're broke. They're trying to figure out how to complete complex paperwork. They want community, they want to be listened to, and they want someone to invest in them. But I also realized that I needed mentorship, and the key to that is networking. My very first meeting, yes, this is going to be a name drop, was with Lizzie Gaver and Ariel Allen. And when I met them, they immediately embraced our vision, and they embraced me and exposed me to this network inside of Knoxville that I hadn't seen, even though I've lived here for 4 years. So because of them, we could hit the ground running. I was reaching out to a bunch of people, and we were finally able to have our first collaborations. So we did a cleanup with Keep Knoxville Beautiful, we did a vendor market with Old Sphere District, and we also did a community listening session where people in the neighborhood surrounding us could ask us questions, and they could tell us what they wanted from us and what their concerns were, and it was really beautiful to hear from these people and connect with them. And our vendor market was one of the first times I realized that we were building something and that people cared and they wanted to show up. Every single person I interacted with was so excited, so enthusiastic, and most of all, curious. What I found out about collaborating with all these different kinds of people is it blew my mind how many questions they would ask and how many questions it would make me ask because they're looking to us for answers. And I also realized that insecurity is useless. It is totally, utterly useless. It chips away at you as you achieve things and you realize that you're succeeding, but you have to push through it in order to make bold choices that make things happen. So as we were trying to connect with people and get people to come out, we realized that we could get weird with it. We could have run clubs, we could have art students. We're working with an advertising class that actually presented to us today. We're working with a team of computer science students, and we also had a book club come and visit the store. And what I learned with kind of having all these diverse people come to the store and learn about it is that they really do deeply care, and it feels like to them we're sharing our journey. If you expose the deepest and darkest, most vulnerable parts of your mission, people will feel like they're in on it with you, and they want to help you achieve your goals. And connecting with businesses, nonprofits, other organizations, community members, teachers, dads, moms, you name it, it has helped us realize that all of our goals are shared. And South Knoxville is so wonderful at embracing small businesses and making people feel like they can achieve things. And it's been so beautiful building these relationships because it propels us forward. And it also helps us to recognize our mantra, which is procure, curate, and create. In this context, I'm talking about people. Procure as many people as you can, meet them, curate ideas, thoughts, missions, create environments where all these communities can come together and complete something. But this really can apply to so many different things in your life, and it certainly applies to our business model. But something that's really important to recognize is that the more people you interact with, the more opportunity you have. Less can be more, yes, we hear that all the time, but in my experience, moving past doubt, moving past fear, and recognizing that fulfillment is more powerful than fear comes with talking to people. It comes with embracing the fact that you just have to move past that doubt, send the email, make the phone call, go to the meeting, and collaborate with your neighbors. Be vulnerable enough to allow them to see you struggle, because we've had boundary after boundary after challenge after challenge. Anyone who's tried to open a small business would know it sucks, but they've embraced us, and so many people are constantly reaching out to me, encouraging us to continue because we've allowed them to invest in us. So allow your community to invest in you because then you will be able to invest in them. And I just want to recognize a couple people. Karen Adams Lauren Farkas, Christopher Morton, Janice Toker, a bunch of people in the community that are just the tip of the iceberg of all these people who have helped us become who we are. And I hope you guys will come and join our community and see us when we open. So thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jonah Pruitt. I'm an architect here at OYSK3 Architects. Who's ready to get technical?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Tonight we're talking about building codes. Now I know that they're an impenetrable document. If you've ever seen the building codes printed, they're about that thick. And there's two different types, residential code, building code, and in them contain all of the documents and standards that we need to meet as architects to keep the public safe, healthy, and not falling over in buildings. Recently, the city of Knoxville changed its codes because of something the state did that allowed cities and municipalities to opt into single stair design R2 residential apartment style buildings. This was done in the middle of last year, and Knoxville followed shortly after in November, I believe. But what are single stair buildings? Essentially, they're up to 6-story tall buildings served by a single egress stair with 4 apartment units per floor, and they're sometimes called point access blocks. They're common in Seattle and most of Europe. All right, so single stair buildings, they have a different character than what we're used to in a lot of the United States. Because all the units, you can see the SAR Architects a little diagram on the left, the units are connected vertically as opposed to horizontally with a hallway between 2 staircases. When you do this, it allows for a lot more flexibility and overall smaller buildings when you don't have a hallway like we have in our standard American 5/1s. Who loves this style of apartment building? That's right. So these buildings are not made because architects love them. They are made in a direct response to how the code is written, requiring 2 exits in a apartment building over 3 stories tall. And what you can see with this comparative diorama is that when you have this connecting hallway and 2 staircases, it takes up a lot more room, requires a lot more space, and it cuts the building in half, so apartments only have single aspect. They can only face out. You can't turn a corner, and it limits your design possibilities. Single stair, on the other hand, there's a lot more flexibility design-wise that we as architects can achieve. Various layouts, bigger apartments, apartments on the ground floor, apartments that have way better window setup so you actually have light and way better airflow so that apartments can stay cooler with natural ventilation. You can see here the comparative layout of like a single stair, so that's like 1 unit below, and then up above that is like a traditional American floor plate, really big, really thick, really long, and ultimately there isn't, the big thing about this is fire safety, and it is a nuanced topic, but the big deal is that Seattle's had the same fire outcomes as the rest of the United States, and they've had this style of building, the single stair, since the 70s. So there's a lot to it in building technology about sprinklers, fire separation, positive pressure egress stairs, and things, and we've come so far since the original IBC, International Building Code, was built that allows it. So the single stair allows smaller, cheaper to acquire sites to be used for units, unit variety and design flexibility, smaller overall buildings, more fine-grained density, natural ventilation, better infill, and more opportunities for housing at different price ranges beyond just the really big block and a single-family home. So actually the crazy part is that Knoxville is the first city this decade to legalize the single stair. Whether you know it or not, you are in the cutting edge of building reform here in Knoxville. So last year, we as the AIA, we put together a competition about accessory dwelling units, which was a very small project. I went to the president of the AIA and said, what if we did something crazy, revolutionary, out of control? They just passed this legislation. What if we did another competition? And so that was where the AIA East Tennessee single stair competition was born. Our boards are over there of the 5 finalists that became finalists after we had 10 submissions from all over the United States, looking to find new cool ideas and discover what these buildings could look like for us here in Knoxville. So I wrote this brief, we did all these studies, and we determined that the intersection of Central and Broadway was going to be like a primo location to put some of these buildings, because the building code, because the planning code allowed us to really max out the height and see what we could do, really let that dog hunt. So now we're going to look at some of the submissions. First, this was the finalist that won the People's Choice Awards at the AIA Gala. This is C Block by McCarty Wholesale McCarty. My favorite part about this building is that it shows what you could do with a small corner lot, and the power of almost all these buildings are heavy frame timber construction because of fire code considerations. The next one was the North Edge Block. I love that the way that this one engages the street right by Yeehaw Brewing and really creates like an urban feeling in a space kind of defined by missing teeth in the urban fabric. Yeah, that one was really cool. Then we have Light Frame. This was an absolutely bug nut one where they suspended all the structure from the roof to really make the most of the ground plane. And it just was like an example of like the real creativity that you can do when you do a competition and you really are just like, it's just the architects. We can have some fun. And then we had Broadway Hinge by Barbara McMurray Architects. This one is right where the Regions Bank is on that corner lot. And they actually did 2-point access block buildings on the site to really use the space of that site to their highest advantage. This one was another one of my favorites. Then we had The Duo by Barbara McMurray Architects. This is right next to where the new MHM office is going to be, basically. It's that crazy site that goes off a cliff, off Central, then down. And this engages the street at the front and the back and allows the public to pass through. Which was a really amazing choice and a really tricky site to try to deal with. So essentially what I want to leave you with is building codes are like rules to a game, and if you don't like the game, you can't change the rules. All it takes is a little attention, some smarts, and forward-thinking people like you to push to change things to make it better so that we, your architects, can design things that we know everyone will love and be beautiful for a long time. Thank you very much.
This past spring, 10 sunflower seeds I planted defied the odds of Tennessee's tough clay soil, growing into 50 blooms, some over 7 feet tall. Like those sunflowers, we too can rise and flourish, even in challenging environments. This presentation will be will touch on difficult topics, but I promise it will end on an uplifting and hopeful note. In 1995, Dr. Vincent Folletti partnered with the CDC and Kaiser Permanente to study adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Surveying more than 17,000 participants, their groundbreaking research revealed how early trauma can profoundly influence lifelong health, behavior, and well-being. So what exactly are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences are potentially traumatic events that occur between the ages of birth and 17. They include different forms of abuse, neglect, and household challenges, such as witnessing violence, substance misuse, or the incarceration of a parent. New data is emerging to suggest that broader, macro-level adversities such as bullying, poverty, and natural disasters can affect children's development. These experiences increase the likelihood of long-term physical, mental, and emotional challenges, often resulting in toxic stress. Got a little fast, sorry. Toxic stress arises when children experience significant adversity without the protective support of stable and nurturing relationships. It can alter brain architecture, affecting areas responsible for learning, memory, and emotional regulation, and impair neural connections critical for healthy development. The ACEs pyramid illustrates how early adversity can disrupt brain development and social-emotional skills, triggering toxic stress. Without intervention, these effects can lead to risky behaviors, poor health outcomes, and increased risk of chronic disease and early mortality. ACEs have been linked to a dramatic increase in the risk for at least 9 out of the 10 leading causes of death in the U.S. Experiencing 4 or more ACEs nearly doubles heart and lung disease risk, with alcohol misuse increasing by 700%. So this is a lot on this graph, so I left a lot of time.
In Tennessee's 2020 Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System survey, nearly 2/3 of adults reported at least one adverse childhood experience, and nearly 1 in 5 reported 4 or more, highlighting the ACE's widespread impact on public health and lifelong health outcomes. While the research underscores the impact of ACEs, this tree represents resilience. Despite adversity, its branches continue to grow, leaves emerge, and new life takes root. It's illustrating the capacity for renewal and hope. I had to change to something good because it's getting better, I promise. So resiliency gives individuals the ability to cope with challenges, adapt to adversity, and continue growing. By developing coping skills, building supportive relationships, and fostering emotional well-being, people can not only overcome difficulties, but also benefit from interventions that strengthen protective factors and promote long-term health. Positive childhood experiences, or PCEs, are the supportive and nurturing experiences that help children thrive. They include feeling cared for by family and friends, participating in community traditions, having a safe and secure home, and reliable access to basic needs. These experiences build resilience and promote long-term mental, emotional, and physical health well-being. When we look at data, a downward trend usually isn't a good sign. But in this case, the decrease reflects the mitigation of ACEs and showing how interventions can reduce negative long-term health outcomes. This is what we like to see. So this next graph is from 2015 Wisconsin Burfus data, and for people with 4 or more ACEs is who they studied. What I love about this graph, it's one of my favorites to present on, is that if you had 0 to 2 resiliency factors, you're at 60% of people with depression or poor mental health, but look at the drastic drop with 6 or 7 more. Tennessee data shows that high PCEs support mental and emotional well-being, lower risky health behaviors, and strengthen overall health and community resilience. Remarkably, 63.6% of Tennesseans report at least one ACE, while 66.8% report 6 to 7 PCEs. The Building Strong Brains initiative establishes Tennessee as a national trailblazer in preventing and mitigating adverse childhood experiences. By promoting early childhood culture change, it helps children thrive and secure the state's future prosperity. So the 10 ACEs initiative was initially focused on educating and supporting OBGYNs and has since grown into a regional effort. We traveled to 16 East Tennessee counties, providing education to the community and support services to mothers. Our team includes a project director, me, 2 community educators, 2 support facilitators, support service facilitators. While we primarily serve new moms with high ACE scores, we welcome any mom or family referred to our program. We also offer adverse and positive childhood experiences trainings tailored to specific needs of any group or organization. By focusing on positive childhood experiences, serve and return interactions, and healthy parent-child attachment, we help individuals strengthen relationships, build resilience, and work towards breaking the generational cycle of trauma for themselves and their families. That's my sister with her oldest baby. So I hope tonight's presentation has both been informative and empowering. As adults, we carry an inner child shaped by our earliest experiences, which may still be healing. By acknowledging and nurturing this inner child, we take an important step towards understanding ourselves and fostering healthier relationships. My favorite slide's coming. In Disney's The Lion King, Simba is struggling with whether he should return home and face his past. Rafiki hits him on the head with a stick and tells him, "It doesn't matter, it's in the past." He adds, "Yes, the past can hurt, but the way that I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it." Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Graves. That's a deep subject. Literally, it's 6 foot deep. But figuratively, it can also be deep. How for each of us, it can cause mixed emotions. For my family and I, graves is a place of remembrance and light. this starts generations back. From when my mom, who's in the audience, who's 75 years old, she went with my grandparents when she was a little girl to my great-grandparents' grave, which followed by them taking that honorary picture behind the headstone and then having a picnic at the local dam. Now, my mom and I still, once a year, go to my great-grandparents' grave. We take the honorary picture behind the headstone, and we have had a picnic in the same picnic place as they did that many years ago. With my grandfather, he's also brought lightheartedness to graves. This happened whenever he was trying to distract somebody from a surprise birthday party. And he said, I want to show you a piece of property I own in Blount County, Tennessee. He was thinking, acres of land, what could this be? Do you know where he took him? His Grandview Cemetery grave plot. These generations of memories of graves has baked into my mom and I having a desire to travel near and far to those graves that are dear to us. But we have faced unexpected challenges along the way, and it's brought us to where we are now. I hope as I'm sharing that you stay with me and think about what's dear to you. Let me take you to these trips. Trip number 1, Joe Burris. This man was intentional in inviting us to Virginia or anywhere he was so we could be with him and catch up. He's buried in Fry's, Virginia. When we got there, we saw a deer gallop out of the graveyard, and then we saw the most poop we had ever seen in one place. We were stepping to the left, stepping to the right, trying to avoid the poop, and then finally we found the grave. And then we were high-stepping back to the car. Somehow we were unscathed. Trip number 2, Hoyt Turberfield. This man was one of my mom's best managers. He always treated her as his own child, and even more so after both of his children got decapitated in a car accident. So we went to his grave in Knoxville. I saw online that in the back was a small church. I thought, that's not going to be hard to find. Wrong. I didn't realize so many graves had that similar background. It was pouring rain. We walked for an hour before we found it. Story number 3, Levi Wisner. This man was my mom's religious mentor. He would answer any question she had when other people were saying, you don't have time for her. He's buried in Gettysburg, Ohio. We took the 4.5-hour trip to go to his grave. And I walked on each row of that graveyard for an hour, and I couldn't find the grave. I did some investigative research. I got out Google, and I looked up his children and grandchildren's phone numbers, and to no avail. So we went back to Tennessee, and thankfully we found a couple people that could take us to the grave. So we went back then to Gettysburg, Ohio, and we persevered through a low tire pressure reading, and we finally found the grave. Now I think about these stories. Each of those times we found the grave, I can't put words on how special it was to be there in reverence of those special people in our lives. But it made me think, I want to save people from having to dodge unnecessary steps around poop. I want to save them extra time being in the pouring rain. And I want to save them from making unnecessary miles. That is what has brought me to where I am now. And now I have a purpose to use the Find a Grave website and go to graves and put GPS coordinates on those graves. so people will know exactly where to go. And I started with honorary my grandfather to his little piece of property he owns in Blount County, his grave plot. And I have a goal for each visible grave that I want to be able to GPS coordinates each of those in Blount County. But I found that there are hundreds of graveyards in Blount County alone. That's where it has me today. Wondering, it seems so big to me, how can I make this a more timely and a feasible goal? Think about, for you, what is in your heart? Are you taking action toward it? If you're taking actions, what else can you do? I believe that all of us can always do more. I ask each of us, whether it's graves or whatever it is, that we do what's feasible for us. Because what is inside of you and what is inside of me matters, and it can make an impact. Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What do 16th century sea voyages, citrus, and travel to Mars have in common? Scurvy. So maybe you wouldn't think of scurvy when you think of traveling to Mars, but vitamin C deficiency, which is scurvy, can manifest in about 3 months. Well, our missions to Mars and back, a round trip, can take about 21 months. So we need to make sure astronauts do not get scurvy while they are on these missions. Now, the stored space diet is interesting, right? So we have some freeze-dried food that may have some deficiencies, and some compounds degrade pretty quickly over time, like vitamin C. One possible solution is growing plants that biosynthesize compounds like vitamin C and other nutrients astronauts need in their diet, just in their normal diet, and to help mitigate some of the negative effects of space radiation. So while we're growing plants, to go to Mars, to supplement that stored space diet, how do we do that in the best way possible? How do we make the most efficient vitamin C with the tasty plants that we actually want to eat? So let's bring it back to Earth. In 2019, $2.7 billion worth of lettuce was grown in the United States, and the vast majority was grown in Arizona and California. What's common in those states? Maybe a lack of water a little bit. So why don't we diversify our food geographically, right? Climate is a kind of an issue, so some possible solutions is controlled environment agriculture. So here are some pictures of a vertical farm and a greenhouse. So a greenhouse, some kind of glazing that lets some light in. Vertical farms, we're supplying all of the light to the plants that they need to grow. So taking geography kind of out of the equation, we can have vertical farms like this. This picture I took in Las Vegas, Nevada. Also, some water issues there. But you can grow plants wherever. Now this next set of pictures here is an aquaponics facility. So we have plants growing, we have fish, and this was at an Old Hands beer factory in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And when I took these pictures, there was snow on the ground outside, so you couldn't really grow, produce outside at that time either. But these are tools that we have, again, to diversify our food system. What I like about controlled environment agriculture is depicted in these two pictures here. This is lettuce that we were growing, seeds sown the same day, same cultivar, so same genetics, everything was the same, besides one factor, different amounts of light supplied to these plants. So they look drastically different. In controlled environment agriculture, we can really control that environment, pull these different levers to steer how the plants grow. So, bringing this back to, what does this have to do with long-duration space missions, right? So in my lab, I'm an assistant professor at the University of Tennessee. We do a lot of work with how can we grow plants the best way to enable long-duration space missions. So this is a picture of a bunch of different types of mizuna, so cultivars or cultivated varieties. So we're determining which ones have better nutritional profiles, yield, taste, which ones grow best. Then we select, okay, this hybrid red mizuna grows well. So how do we grow that the best way possible? How much light do we give it? How long do we give it the light? What color of light, etc. And these pictures here, these plants were all grown under different conditions, and they look different, but they also have different nutritional quality. They told me, since I'm an academic, they said, oh, don't put graphs in your presentation. So I thought this picture looked like a graph. I try to get around the rules sometimes. So this is a basil. The small plants were grown under a low temperature, and as we come to the right, we're increasing the temperature that we're growing the basil. So we're pulling that temperature lever. This is a picture of some lettuce. Now that, again, all the same genetics. On the far left, those green plants were grown under a lower light intensity, and as we move to the darker plants, we have more and more light supplied to those plants. And it's not just the coloration that changes. That purple pigmentation is anthocyanins, kind of like those antioxidants you have in blueberries. Now here's some purple basil that we want to have purple. So the plants on the top were grown under a high light intensity. The plants on the bottom, lower light intensity. The plants on the left were grown under a low temperature, and the plants on the right were grown under a high temperature. So we have interactions of different environmental factors as well. My lab also does a lot of work with dynamic environmental control. So we have a bunch of lettuce here. Again, same genetics, different light. Light's an easy factor to show cool examples of. But we're just changing the light during the first 2 weeks of growth. And then we transplant it into a common greenhouse environment. We also do work with, okay, can we do something really quickly, right at the end of production, to increase that post-harvest life, so how long it lasts in your fridge, or quickly and efficiently increase the vitamin C or other nutritional compounds. We do different work with altering light quality or the color of light. So you might have seen some purplish lights or white lights, but all spectrum in between and beyond this affects plants differently, and we can really pull these levers to increase vitamin C, increase vitamin B1. So controlled environment agriculture is a tool to alter how efficiently we reproduce yields, but also color, nutritional quality, flavor, and is a tool that we can use to diversify our food system, not just with lettuce, but with other crops as well, and not just on Earth, but beyond. So I like to end with this cool, moody picture of basil with, the future is not bleak. It is bright. There's innovative things going on, and we have to persist. Thank you.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. Hold on 2 seconds. I have been honored to be part of this selection committee, and so some of you who don't know me, you saw me messing with the knobs back there with Matt Lawrence back there now. But before I go, I do want to say thank you to the folks behind the scenes that make this happen. Can you say thank you to them as well? And I think that we continually need to remember how important it is for these quarterly events and others that bring us together like we are tonight. So, I don't know, I think I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? Let's go!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Chris McAdoo. I'm an artist, a designer, among other things, an entrepreneur, and I've got a confession to make. I use my hands. I use my hands to talk, I use my hands to paint, to build, to print, and I also use technology, like artificial intelligence. But I am a wild animal. Just like you creators, my friends. Do you ever just want to howl at the moon? Woo! Well, hold on, wait, you'll get a chance in just a second. And I wanted to hear from a creative community under siege from technology, so I made a little survey about AI and creativity and where everyone uses technology. And I'll keep collecting answers, by the way. because I'm going to continue this work. And thanks to so many people that shared their words and their experiences, like Courtney H., whose thoughts on AI and creativity and so much more, who said this transition is hopeful and horrifying, which sounds like the first half of any creative project, right? Worth doing. And I wonder if that's how Daguerre felt nearly 200 years ago when he took this photo, the first photo of a person ever. You see him down there? When photography was described as deplorable, the refuge of every would-be painter who just couldn't hack it, by poet and critic Charles Baudelaire. And I got to imagine that Gutenberg was hopeful about the printing press almost 500 years ago. And like John H. says, change is hard, requires sacrifice, but it is essential. Let's think about who takes that sacrifice on their shoulders. Like the textile workers that inspired the Luddites. The original Rage Against the Machine. Marcus B. reminds us that human creativity isn't based on data. It's not based on algorithms, but AI is. And we need to remember that AI is powerful. It's incredible. It is transformative, but it does not imagine. It does not feel. It does not create. But we do. David talks about his best days. It's wonderful to help with that messy middle of business, but AI can be a distraction, an illusion of productivity. Can it also be an illusion of creativity, right? Like a band called Velvet Sundown, an entirely AI-generated band with almost 4 million plays on Spotify with their song Dust on the Wind. It takes this beautiful, painful process of creativity and it just skips the good parts. It's AI agents talking to AI agents, training AI agents on everything we've ever done in the history of time, and hiring AI-generated actresses like Tilly Norwood to star in AI-generated commercials about AI-generated snacks and fabric softener. She has a real-life human agent, by the way. And with over 50% of all web traffic now reduced to bots, are we, as Kelsey Walker says, in the AI slop Middle Ages? Now, we don't know how this story ends, but we do know that after the Middle Ages came the Renaissance. So what is next? Okay, that's just a real headline. Just take a second and read that. That's just, I wish I could give you a clear answer of what's next. I wish I could say in or out or bad or good, the top 3 prompts to supercharge your TikTok feed. But my friends, my fellow wild animals, it's not that easy. That's why I need a little help. Like the Who's in Whoville, it is going to be time to make some noise. I want you to be thinking about your best yawp, your best howl, your best roar. Are you thinking about it? I'm going to help you out. I too am not a bit tamed. I too am untranslatable. I sound my barbaric yaw across the roofs of the world. Does that feel good? My animals, does that feel right? Here in this room. Now let's hear it on the count of 3. I want to hear you as loud as you can go. 1, 2, 3, yeah! It's a little messy, right? But it feels good. It feels cathartic to howl at the moon, to remember that we are here and we are here together. But I want to hear it one more time. Let's send it out on the count of 3 and howl and roar and bring it. 1, 2, 3. Woo! That's pretty good. Art is meant to be felt, heard, and seen. It's meant to transform and to challenge and to inspire. We're here and we have threads to untangle and messes to make and stories to tell. And each of our howls and yawps in their own way make a difference, even if it's just, or especially if it's a difference to the person right next to us. My hero, Chuck Close, who suffered a debilitating stroke at the height of his career, learned to paint with his teeth, and he says inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us get up and go to work. It's friendship, family, love, encouragement, and relationships. Caitlin B., I believe she's talking about real life. Real, messy, creative, weird, painful, amazing life. A life where we create before we consume. My friends, we take our creative spirit, our yowls, our roars, our yops, and each other into this November night in Knoxville, Tennessee, making a promise to each other to get to work. And I assure you, there is work to be done. Thank you, and stay wild.
Knoxville, you're beautiful. We'll be back in February. Thank you.